Good afternoon, everyone. Bienvenue. Welcome to today's interactive webinar, which is all about planning for retirement and creating a vision for how you want to live this next chapter of your life. My name is Sylvia Otvos, and I am responsible for the Alumni Women Who Lead program, and I will be your host for this event. Let's start off as we usually do with a quick sound check. I'm going to change it up today though, so please listen. Look at the bottom of center of your screen. The icon titled chat is the chat box. Please click it and we're going to answer a different question today. I would like to know, in how many years are you planning on retiring? And I'm looking here. We've got some 15, some 5s, 3, 4, 2.5, already retired, 25. So we have people of all ages here, which is super exciting. And just so you know, we've got close to 500 people registered for this webinar. So people are starting to think about their next chapter. So while we meet today on a virtual platform, it is customary to begin our events with a territorial acknowledgement. We acknowledge that Concordia's campuses are located on unceded Indigenous lands. The Ganyoge-Haga Nation is recognized as the custodian of the lands and waters on and near where Concordia is today. Montreal, or Jojage, is historically known as a gathering place for many First Nations. Today, it is home to a diverse population of Indigenous and other peoples. We respect the continued connections with the past, present, and future in our ongoing relationships with Indigenous and other peoples within the Montreal community. Our speaker today is Dr. Susan Reid, a retired professor of marketing and entrepreneurship at the Williams School of Business at Bishop's University. She is a grad of Concordia as well with a doctorate degree in marketing. Her teaching, research, and community service interests lie at the intersection of marketing, innovation, and user design with an in-depth focus on the topic of vision, particularly for older adults and entrepreneurs. Susan has been a keynote speaker locally and internationally, speaking about the power of vision, and was a contributor to Forbes.com from 2015 to 2016. She is currently spending her retirement writing, traveling, and sharing her journey with others. Welcome, Susan. The mic is all yours.
Welcome, fellow Concordians, family, and friends. I'm really excited to be here today. And in fact, I'm right here at Concordia University in the advancement office, so it's really nice to be actually back on campus. So I'd like to welcome you. As Sylvia said, I encourage you to ask lots of questions at the end of the presentation. And I am really looking forward to sharing what I can with you about revisioning retirement in this talk. If it's about a 40 to 45-minute presentation. If you can't catch everything as it goes through, don't worry about it. You'll have the webinar that you can refer back to. You're going to have the slides that we'll share with you. And also, I'll be telling you a little bit at the end of the talk about a pilot project that I'm going to be running during May. It's a 4-week pilot project, and I'd like to invite anyone who's interested. It's free to participate in that project, but I'll tell you a little bit more about it after we're finished here. So let's get started, shall we? So let's take a look at these slides. This was my idea of retirement. This is it, right? A little time for journaling, a little time to write in your diary, doing a sailing trip with some friends for a few weeks after I retired, partying with your besties, all of that great stuff, and just keep rinsing and repeating until the end of time, right? Well, it was all great. I had a great trip. It was really fun. But then actually what happened was I had a bit of an epiphany. At the end of my post-retirement trip, I literally had the first panic attack of my 57-year-old life. Wasn't expecting that to happen, but it did. And I knew exactly what it was about too. Basically, the reality that I was returning home after a 3-week trip and the reality that I was retiring dawned on me. And I'd gone from 100% full out work to 0 in the blink of an eye. So like so many of us at this stage in our lives, which, by the way, retirement is defined by the Cambridge Dictionary as stopping working because you're getting old, if you can believe it. I hadn't given any real thought to what an engaging vision for my own retirement might even look like. And the irony of the situation is that the main focus of my teaching, my academic career, my research, my consulting over a 25-plus-year career was on the topic of vision. And there I was with no vision to speak for it all, for my own retirement whatsoever. The classic cobbler with no shoes. So there you have it. But what I realized is that I'm not alone. There's 1.5 billion retirees living on this planet in developing and developed countries. And that number is predicted to double by 2050. So I'm definitely not alone. And I realize there's never been such a need for guidance at this stage of life. And here's the kicker. Based on the research I've done so far with retirees and near-to-be retirees, most people are like me. They didn't have a vision or a plan for the retirement. So what I want to do is just talk a little bit about retirement itself. Excuse me, just a second here. What I do know is that there's a step-by-step process for vision based on all of my research. And I also know from my experience and my own research in the business world, the vision can guide your activity in a way that's more likely to achieve successful results. The same has to be true of retirement, right? So let's take a look-see. So first of all, now I want to talk to you about retirement. And what is with that word anyway? Everybody dislikes it, including myself. Somebody actually in the early questions that they were able to send into Concordia said, I like the word realignment. I like that word too. And I've heard other people use other terms for it, which I prefer as well. And you heard the definition I just gave you from the Cambridge Dictionary, which was basically saying that as soon as you're old, you're ready to retire. So, and I don't even really know what old means either. So let's just take a look back at when revisioning retirement starts to make sense. So my parents, and that's them there, I hope they're listening in. They said they were going to. Hi, Mom and Dad. Just a little shout out to them. That's them on the left-hand side of the screen when they got married in 1960. And they basically both retired in the late 1980s. And the average retirement age around them was about 65. For my husband, Charlie, and I, we both retired just before 60. I was 57, he was a little bit older. And many of our cohort were known as the Freedom 55ers. Remember that? And now, basically my kids and their friends who are in their late 20s, they're talking about trying to retire even earlier than that, like in their 40s. Basically put their money away, work hard when they're young, and then, retire by 40. But the thing is that, in their age group, they're all going to live past 100 if technology keeps going the way that it is. And so, what are they going to do with the last 2/3 of their lives? Really interesting to think about, isn't it? So hence revisioning retirement gets even more important. And with people taking early retirement of all ages, it's an increasingly common trend, also known as the Great Resignation. You may have heard it called the Big Quit. A lot of people think that it was the result of the pandemic, but actually research shows that trend was coming on for a much longer period of time, in the order of about 15 plus years. So we really need to start thinking about, well, what do we do when our first major careers are finished? How do we revision chapter 2, chapter 3, chapter 4, 5 of our lives? How do we move forward? So enter revisioning retirement. As we transition from the goals we set that took us through school, our early careers, our relationships, our young relationships into our midlife, we may notice that some of the values from which these goals stem have shifted, or we may desire them to shift in a big way. The question is, what's next, right? What should I be aspiring to at this stage in my life? What's important for me to do now? What kind of legacy do I want to leave? And these questions beg us to revision or re-see the way that we spend the next chapter of our lives. And in fact, I've got a recent Wall Street Journal article quote here that states that more people over 60 plan to continue working on some level in the future, but no clear roadmap exists as to how to do that. So, what we do know, there's a few things that we do know. First of all, people in their 50s and beyond are starting to work more and more part-time. That is for sure. People who have retired are actually re-entering the workforce, and many of them are working entrepreneurially. The number of people working 50 plus in entrepreneurial careers is at its highest point ever in history, which is quite interesting. Secondly, we also know that this is a healthier and increasingly more active group of retirees than ever before. And thirdly, For the most part, people want an aligned, engaged second chapter, or like I said, third, fourth, fifth, whatever it happens to be. So today, I want to share a few things. First of all, I want to share some personal stories and experience from revisioning my own life. Second of all, I want to offer up a little bit of research on visioning and revisioning. And third, I want to get you up and running by leading you through a few self-exercises for some future goals that fit in with your personal vision. So we'll try and get all of that done in 45 minutes. Let's see how we do. Okay, so let's just take a step back here for a second and talk a little bit about vision itself. What is vision? Because people are coming at this talk from different perspectives. Some of you may be very well aware of what vision is, what the components of, and so you can go get a cup of coffee if you already know what this is all about. But I do want to just cover the main topic just to make sure everybody's on the same page. So basically, just a quick definition, you can think of vision as how your desired goals appear to you. It's like a cinematic preview of your desired future playing out in your mind's eye. It's the world you want to see, right? So, and vision should be a little bit out of reach. They should represent basically what Collins and Porras, you may have heard of them, they're very famous researchers in the field of vision, what they call in their book to last, big, hairy, audacious goals. In other words, the goals should be somewhat aspirational as part of a vision. They're not necessarily a destination, but a direction to follow. And often they do just feel a little bit out of reach. But some are reachable, and those that are reachable might look a little bit like JFK's vision that he set for the future back in 1961, when he set out to land a man on the moon before the end of the decade. And you can just imagine all of those engineers from NASA were looking at each other saying, did he just say that? Are we actually putting someone on the moon? And then, of course, they had to backcast and work back from there to say, well, what do we need to do to actually do that? And so having that larger long-term vision sort of, and it then enables you to work back from there with some short-term visions in which which will help you to achieve that longer term vision. So things like, well, we better train some astronauts. We better, figure out how we're going to actually land on the moon. We'll need a little lunar landing module, things like that. They knew what that gave them workable visions from which they were able to finally achieve the goal in 1969. I still remember being let out from school at a young age to go and watch that. Very exciting. Okay, so now what are the key aspects of vision? Let's drill down just a little bit. There are three main aspects of vision, or core components, as it were. The first one is that every vision has a future goal as part of it. And that goal can be further divided down into the actual form of the goal, what it looks like, and the scope. How big is the goal? What kind of impact could it potentially have? The second component of vision is magnetism, or passion, the passion of having that goal. And this is a very important thing as well. In fact, it's what differentiates just having any old goal from making it a vision. It's having a super high level of passion. It's the difference between brushing your teeth every day because the dentist tells you have to wanting to have a really nice smile. Okay, so that's sort of the difference in a very sort of simple way of thinking. And then the third aspect is clarity or specificity, which means that in order to really be able to pursue a vision, it has to be clear enough that you can understand it yourself and able to follow it. And you also need to be able to express it to other people to get their buy-in. If it's a vision for a company, for example, an entrepreneurial vision, you need to be able to get employees involved and understand very, very clearly what it is that you want to do. So that's just a little bit of a nutshell overview about what vision is all about. Okay, so let's get looking at a few examples here just to make this more tangible. So the first thing is the goal and the form of the goal. So here's Oprah, of course, and she's describing the goal of her vision to be a teacher and to be known for inspiring her students. And what I think is important here is that she conveyed her vision clearly in what's known as a vision statement. And having a vision statement actually is great because, again, it allows you to really drill down into what you specifically want to focus on, and it also enables you to share it with other people and get them on board. So what are we talking about when we're talking about vision scope? We're talking about the size of the goal and the potential to actually impact others. This is a photo that one of my friends, Thea, shared with me. Thea, I think, is sitting in on the presentation. Hey, Thea, how are you doing? She's one of my peeps. And just wanted to say thank you to her for sharing this great picture of her when she's done quite a bit of work for Habitat for Humanity. And their vision is to develop a world where everyone has a decent place to live. And obviously a great vision. It's one of these visions that you're just always moving forward towards to try and achieve it. And it's obviously a not-for-profit, and so some visions are personal vision statements that you only enact yourself, and I'll show you an example of that coming up next. And some are visions that you share with others or that are part of a corporate vision that is shared by more than one person. And that's the case here with Habitat for Humanity. So vision clarity, this is about zooming in on that desired mental map that you have, your cinematic preview of your vision, and it enables providing direction to others. It also helps to reduce variance in understanding between people and for yourself. It really kind of forces you to kind of zoom in on what it is that you want to achieve. So I love this example. I don't know if you guys saw the movie that came out recently called Naiad. Great movie. Definitely recommend it if you haven't seen it. You probably have heard of Diana Naiad, even if you haven't seen the movie. She's the person, she was the first to swim from Cuba to Key West. She tried to do it 5 times. Her first attempt was at 60. Oh, God love her. Love that story. And she successfully achieved it at her 5th attempt when she turned 64. I put a little map here so you could just see it. And she did that in 2013. So wow, that's all I can say about that. That's an amazing vision come true. And then this last aspect, which is vision magnetism. Vision magnetism obviously is core to being able to not only create a vision, but to actually realize it. And there's several reasons for this. One is, it takes a lot of get up and go. You got to muster a lot of get up and go to be able to actually work towards a vision and achieve it, or, be in that mode where you're constantly striving to fulfill that vision. And having a really passionate magnetic vision enables you to overcome your inertia. It also helps to speed up the process. If you're more clear on where you're heading and you're really passionate about it, you're going to move towards that carrot, right? And then the third thing is attracting others to the idea. The more passionate you are, the more passionate other people are going to be about it. And so we've got the example of Walt Disney here. To make people happy was the Disney vision, his personal vision that sprang into a corporate vision. And I think it's a great example of a wonderful global happy vision. As Marie Kondo says, I'm a huge fan, the cleaning expert. If you don't know her, she's a big cleaning expert. And it's all about letting, if you don't feel joy, she says, let it go. And the same is true of vision statements. So passion and magnetism are absolutely key. And I just a little bit more on this. Why is vision important, and how does it tie in with vision passion? I love this example. It's a simple example of 3 bricklayers working on a building. And when each one was asked in turn what they were doing, they responded. The first one said, well, I'm laying bricks. Okay, so, sees right in front of him or her what they're doing. They're laying bricks. The second person was building a wall. A little bit of a bigger vision, a little bit broader. And the third person says, well, I'm erecting a great cathedral. And I think that really clearly illustrates what I want to talk about a lot today, actually, why revisioning retirement is really important. So actually, I have a funny story. This is, I don't know if you recognize this cathedral, but this is the cathedral in Siena in Italy. It's a beautiful place. I think it's one of the most beautiful churches I've ever visited. And I went in, we were on a family trip. My son was about 14 or 15 at the time. And we went in, and I remember he came up to me. It's really a beautiful place, and all the black and white marble. And he came up and grabbed my arm and said, Mom, you mean if I work really hard, if I have that kind of like goal for myself, that kind of vision, and I really love what I'm doing, I could make something this beautiful? And I thought, my work is done here. So there you go. Vision achieved from my side. So related to that, then I just, sort of want to say that something about the necessity ladder. I don't know if you've heard of the necessity ladder, but basically there's this idea of the different rungs. Actually, I should probably put rung 4 on the top instead of the bottom. But anyway, I'm a little visually challenged sometimes. So rung 1 is about impulsive desire, right? It's like just gut, short-term, spontaneous stuff that we do without really any thought. Rung 2 is of necessity, is basically external demands. I have a deadline I have to achieve. So like I have to, I'm laying bricks, I'm getting that done. The third thing is internal standards. I do what I say I will do. And this is very important in terms of necessity, is fulfilling your, what you've promised other people you'll do, and, the job that you've, promised you'll do. And the fourth thing, though, is destiny thinking. Destiny thinking is linked to your values and your aspirations, the things that you want to achieve, very importantly. So the bigger question is, am I talking myself into a bigger vision? Something with the capacity to bring great value to others. I mean, I think this is a really, really important question. And so I just wanted to grab my notes because I had something really important that I wanted to say about this, and I don't want to forget about it. Yeah, so am I talking myself into this bigger vision, or am I just like dealing with the tasks of the day? Actually, I saw there was one question that came in early. Some people sent in some early questions. Thank you, because it helped prime my pump to think about what you guys were interested in knowing about. And one of the questions was, well, is it okay, like if I just want to live day to day and, live spontaneously? And whoever sent in that great question, pardon me, because I'm sort of paraphrasing, I realize. But, I love that question, because actually the inspiration to want to live and the passion and the vision to like actively live day to day, for me, is a vision. And it's a well thought out vision. It's very Eckhart Tolle, actually, Power of Now, which I love. I mean, I find it really hard to do that. I'm constantly trying to get there on an ongoing basis, but it's not easy to do. So I think that if it's not a default mechanism where you're not thinking actively about it, and that's a different situation. But if it's something you've actively thought about as being your vision, I think that's groovy. Go for it. And once I revisioned my retirement, I can tell you, once I started thinking about what I really wanted to give back, it was like I had a firecracker in my bed every morning going off, getting out of bed. Like I felt the purpose and the urgency to get up and get going. So I wanted to share just a little bit with you about my own personal visioning story. Just quickly, I'm not going to get into this is about our business, but just to sort of share a little bit with you about where my vision was at then and where I'm at now, because I've evolved, I would say, in terms of where my vision sits. When I was about 5 years into my 9-year PhD here at Concordia, but that's another story. I was starting to get really interested in the topic of vision, and that's what I ended up studying, obviously, and did my PhD on. But despite my interest in vision, I seem to have a knack for jumping into major life-changing events with both feet and no plan, and then figuring out the vision after. But that's just me. So case in point, when we bought this very rundown farm, apple orchard in Fraley'sburg in 2000, almost 25 years ago today now, honestly, we were pretty overwhelmed about what to do with all the apples that we had that we'd inherited. And the crazy thing that was, my husband and I both have MBAs before we did PhDs. So, we hadn't really sort of thought it through before we bought this 430-acre orchard. So we knew we had to get a vision, and we had to get it quick. And so we decided basically that we were going to, through a lot of different exercises that we did with ourselves, that we wanted to create the world's top ice cider. That was our vision, to be number one, create the first big ice cider. And in 2000, we basically launched our brand in 2001. And we started selling into the SAQ in 2002. You may or may not be familiar with it. It's called Temempinac. And, it's interesting, just like a quick thing about vision, which is funny, is it really does direct what you end up doing, because it seems like a very simple vision, right? To be the top cider in the world. But it very quickly meant a few things that we had to actionate on. First of all, it meant that if world's top ice cider meant we had to get distribution. And if we were going to grow organically, it would have taken us 50 years to get global distribution. So we had to get a strategic alliance partner, and we did within a couple of years, very quickly, And all of a sudden we had distribution across 55, 60 countries by 2004 because it had been part of our vision. So I think that's, an important thing to kind of think about. And also we knew we had to get up and running very quickly. So because we knew a lot of other players who were also casting around what to do with their apples were looking at us to see what we were doing. So we knew there was going to be a lot of competition. So we knew we had to move fast. So basically, being able to vision well can be the difference between achieving big, hairy, audacious goals or just getting through the tasks of the day. 15 years later, we basically revisioned that story. Ice cider, as we had anticipated, quickly got saturated for a lot of reasons, and we knew we had to stay ahead of the curve, so we decided to take advantage of the lack of offerings in the Canadian spirits market. So I'm just giving you one example. We actually launched several products, and maybe this is one that a lot of people know, the Courrier de Bois. It's Cabot Trail outside of Quebec. Very interesting product. I actually collected the first maple syrup for that product with my kids on our orchard and the maple tree grove that we had there. And basically, so we launched a premium line of Canadian spirits on high quality local ingredients. And that was that vision. So at the time it was novel, and we became one of the first and largest players in Canada in that zone. So that was that vision. So, but what happened was, the interesting thing was, oops, I'm sort of going forward a little too quickly here. The interesting thing was, what drove me during those years was really a strong level of achievement motivation. I would say that really was what was motivating me a lot. I've always been a little bit like that. It was like lots of products, do the PhD, get her done kind of mentality. And you know what? It brought me to great places, and I was really happy with what was going on. But then when I retired, and I think part of the panic attack that I had was, I realized that those values that I had that were underlying my development at that time, they were great during the time when it was the roll up your sleeves time in life. But then it just wasn't doing it for me anymore. I felt like I needed some new aspirational values underlying what I was doing. I had to really sort of sit back and rethink it. And I did that for a couple of years, and I started writing a memoir right after I retired. I did continue to work on certain things. I wrote a textbook and other things, but I was really thinking about how I wanted to revision this next chapter of my life. And so I wanted to sort of share a little bit of this with you. And I apologize. I hope you can see this slide okay. Basically, this is my now and ongoing mind map for myself. And I don't know if you can see, I'm a horrible illustrator, by the way, so I apologize right out of the gates, and I hope you can read this. But this is what my mind map looks like. And basically, I've been working on my vision for a long time, my vision itself. I've worked with a couple of great coaches over the years, Jackie Roberts, Jill Hugesson, Hope Patterson. Want to give a little shout out to my girls. And they've helped me very much over the years and coming up with a vision, which I've actually refined a lot over the last couple of years, but it was always basically, the core was always the same. And it was basically sharing what the vision path is for all to see. And that's what I'm hoping to achieve with what I'm doing today. And what you'll see is on the left, a little something called my authentic self. And that's, who I am. Those are my values, most of which will always kind of be there through my life, and things that I value and I'm passionate about, skills on some level, things like, my family and friends, very important to me. Giving back to community is important for me. I'm a runner. I love to dance, and I love karaoke. So if you ever come over to our house, that's probably what you'll be subjected to. I love to play chess and Scrabble. So those are things that energize me. And I think you never want to lose sight of what those things are. And it's worthwhile to try and really sort of tap into those on a regular basis, because they're what energize you and enable you to continue always delivering on your bigger picture vision. But it's also important on the right-hand side over there to look at your aspirational self. And something that I realized for myself, and everybody's got something different, right? But for me, I wanted to, and I've always been a little bit interested in this, but it's gotten stronger over the last couple of years, that I really wanted to develop spiritually and learn more about Qigong and Buddhism. Those short-term goals out of that greater, longer-term aspiration to develop spiritually. And there were three core principles, which I'll talk about a little in just a minute, that kind of derive from that. So that's my mind map, simple as it is. But the aspirational self, where the authentic self helps to, I would say, energize, the aspirational self sort of lights the fuel under that energy and kind of really brings it to another level. So enter the fun revisioning process. So this is something I'm working on now and developing. The pilot project is about sort of working on several exercises for work that I'm working on right now that hopefully will be published by Barlow Books at the beginning of January in 2025. And so basically the process is several exercises around, first of all, foundations, so understanding your authentic self. Secondly, uncovering and discovering your aspirational self. And thirdly, nurturing and bringing your vision to life. So those are the three components, and I'm going to basically spend the rest of the presentation talking about those. So with foundations, this is about understanding your authentic self. And when we talk about authentic self, basically we're talking about three main components: your values, your skills, and your passions. Now, there's tons of inventories out there. I realize, everything from what color is your parachute to, much more in-depth values analyses and skill set analyses. And so I won't take you through any of that today. We don't have time, obviously. That's a whole thing unto itself. But what I would like to do is delve into just a very quick, high-level, authentic self exercise, if you will allow me. It won't take long, just 2 minutes of your time if you happen to have a pen and a paper handy, or if you have your laptop or even your phone, you can take notes on or dictate a little voice memo to yourself. I just want to take you through this. It'll take 2 minutes, and then we're going to do the same thing for an aspirational self exercise afterwards. Okay, everybody ready to roll here? So, all right. So before we get started, just to ground ourselves and probably to slow my speaking down just a little bit, I want you to close your eyes just for a second and take a few deep breaths, okay? And get you into a bit of a grounded rhythm and flow. Just do that for a couple of minutes. And when I ask you to open your eyes, I want you to write down what pops into your head first in answer to the following questions. But first, just another couple of quick breaths. Okay. So first of all, when you really need to get back to yourself and feel grounded, which of your values do you turn to for guidance and direction? I call this a grounding value. Okay, so when you really need to get back to yourself, which of your values do you turn to for guidance and direction? What are your go-tos? Okay, so write that down. And the second question, when you have a spare block of time, what's the first thing you typically do with that time? Like something you're continually drawn to and that's easy for you to do, like a spontaneous skill, a natural skill. And the third question is, list 3 times in your life when you felt most content, fulfilled, and aligned, like you felt in flow. I think this was Jackie that introduced me to this question. And, this might involve doing the kind of activity that I referred to as a cobweb clearing type of activity. For me, that's something like, skiing or running. But everybody's got something different that floats their boat for cobweb clearing activities. So just write down 1 or 2 or 3 times in your life you felt really in flow, or a couple of activities that have gotten you there. Okay, so your answers to these 3 questions might offer you a little bit of insight as to where you are now in terms of your authentic self. But as I've already mentioned, what I really want you to consider, probably my biggest takeaway I want you to have after this talk, is that your current situation, where you're at in terms of your values, your passions, your interests, and your skills, and so on and so forth, doesn't necessarily dictate your aspirational future. Okay, it doesn't have to dictate that. I want to give you a really simple example, actually, just to bring this home. I'll never forget, I had a student years ago. He was like 6'8" or 6'9". He's a very, very tall guy. And he came up to me. It was an entrepreneurship class I was teaching at Bishop's. And he said, I want you to know something right out of the gates. I'll never forget this. He said, I'm a basketball player. And I did. I knew he was on the team. Bishop's is a place where everybody knows everybody else. So I knew he was on the team. And he said, I'm great at it. I love playing, love being on the team, but I don't want that to dictate my future. Like I want to do something else. I have an entrepreneurial vision in the environmental space. And I was like, right on, let's go there, so, and that really got me thinking, about aspiration and how that works with the authentic self. So wherever you are, thank you. So the second part of the fun process is uncovering your aspirational self. And basically, you want to think about not only where you are right now in the here and now and what your present authentic self is, but you want to know where you want to be in the future. And you want to think about how to bridge to that. Okay. And this is the chance, bringing those types of aspirational values into your motivation set, it can be a game changer. I guarantee it. So I just wanted to give you a couple of fun examples here, a couple of interesting examples. I have a couple here from my friends that I think they're going to like. So I told them up front because I know they like these people. So I've included a couple of fun treasure hunt ones for those people. You'll recognize them as soon as you see them. So the first one is having fun. A lot of people, that's in chapter 2 or 3, 4, that they want to have fun. And I get that. So do I. So this is, of course, the the unbeatable Richard Branson, and his vision is to have fun on my journey through life. That's his vision. I love it. Let's look at another one. Elon Musk. His vision is if something's important enough, you should try it. So he likes trying new things. Not surprising, given the number of different things he's involved with. And one example, just one of many, is he says the future is a place where anyone can go to Mars and gas cars will be like steam engines. I actually really like that vision statement as a statement. This is a really good example of a clearly enunciated vision statement because it shows the imagery. You get the image. The more, actually, there's been research done. I don't want to go off on a tangent too much, but I do want to mention that there's been a lot of research done that shows that the more tangible conceptuality you can have, better imagerized, is that a word? The more imagery that you have as part of your vision, the more clear it will be for other people and yourself, and the more successful you're likely to be with achieving that vision. So that's actually something good to keep in mind. Okay, another example, maybe your aspirational vision is to improve the environment. It's David Suzuki. I actually had the opportunity to meet him years ago during my undergrad in biology, got to take him out for dinner at Queen's. It was such a great night. Interesting man. Yeah, so his vision was to act every day on the understanding that we were one with nature. Just some simple examples. This one's for you, Cynthia. Julia Child's vision is to expand people's awareness of cooking. She was a great teacher. And I love the fact that she started her business in her 50s. So there's a great example of entrepreneurship, seniorpreneurship, as it's called. So another great example is Rosalind Carter's vision was she started the Rosalind Carter Institute for Caregivers. This is a big aspirational value for many people. For some people, it's out of necessity. For other people, it's something they really desire in terms of giving back and volunteering later in life. And so, yeah, she's a great example of someone who took her position, power, money, and turned it into something really great. Gandhi, what can be said? He's the Mahatma Gandhi to alleviate poverty. That was his vision. And I love the saying, to be the change you want to see. So those are just a few examples. Sadly, we don't have more time to delve into more, but just to give you the little bit of flavor about what aspirational values might actually look like. So now we're going to do a little aspirational self exercise. Again, just to sort of start thinking about, what your aspirations could or might look like. I want to just actually read you a couple of lines. Get this. Give me 1 second. Of course, I brought way more notes than I'd ever be able to use in a million years. Oh. Sorry about this. Oh, here we go. Because I had a list of some just to get to prime your pump, to get you thinking. So here's a few types of aspirational values you might just think about, okay? Relationships. I want better relationships. I want a closer relationship with my mate. I want to develop new relationships. I want, a better relationship with my family. Social values. I want to give back. Some of the examples I just showed you. Social justice is an aspirational value. The environment, like David Suzuki's example. Spirituality. This is, where I'm trying to sort of develop a little bit. Morality. If spirituality is not your thing, maybe it's morality. Creativity. So someone that I was working with in a focus group said that she wanted to be more creative, and I thought that was a great aspiration. Learning new things, being more innovative, openness, acceptance, freedom, well-being, or something else that I haven't got listed. I'm sure there's many, many more, but I just wanted to sort of get you thinking along the lines of what I think about when I think about aspirational values. So now, again, I just want you to take a moment just to sort of center yourself. Just take another deep breath. Get that pen if you have it at the ready. And from that list that I just gave you, or if you have anything else in mind, that's fine too, obviously. I want you to write down 3 which immediately appeal to you. That popped into your head, oh, that's me, or, this is something that I am interested in, I haven't really given a lot of consideration to. Just write down 3 words. Just write those down. Okay, and now, if you've got them written down, again, just take another deep breath, okay? I'm going to ask you to close your eyes again, and I'm going to ask you a question. I want you to keep your eyes closed while I ask you the question, and then I'll ask you to open them, and I want you to write down the first word that pops into your mind without judging it or anything else. Just write it down right away. Okay, so close your eyes, deep breath. And here's the question, okay? What is the main aspirational value I will focus on in the future? Now open your eyes, and whatever just popped into your head, write it down. Don't judge it. Just write it down quickly before you even have a chance to judge it. Okay? All right, so we'll leave that there, and we're going to come back to it at the very end. Okay, let's see how much time I had. Okay, 5 more minutes. So nurturing, the last part of the fun revisioning process. This is bringing your vision to life. And there are several stages to this, and there's a lot of detail in terms of what I'm working on with my workbook and that kind of thing. But I just want to introduce you again to the ideas behind this, and maybe leave you with a couple of ideas for moving forward with creating your own personal vision statement. Okay, you ready to do that? So first of all, cultivating a good environment. Okay, that's important. You need like good soil in which to grow the flowers that are going to come, right? The second thing is fleshing out the insights for your vision. The third part is crafting your draft message. And the fourth part is drilling down into a core message that can underlie your personal vision statement. So the first thing, cultivating a good environment. Now, I don't have a lot of time to get into this, but I just want to tell you, I'll give you a few ideas and tell you a little bit from my own experience with this, okay? So the first part of cultivating a good environment, I think, is your attitude. Cultivating openness is really, really important, I think, for moving forward. I've been studying a little bit about Qigong. I went to a workshop, a 5-day workshop given by this gentleman named Master Gu, I'm going to get his name wrong, but it's Master Gu, G-U, if you want to look him up online. He does a lot of work in this area with Qigong based around Buddhism, Taoist philosophies and principles. But one of the main takeaways I got from him was that we're always in a state of either expansion or contraction, like opening or closing. And we all know what that feels like, right? If our heart's open and we're ready to open up, our blood pressure goes down, we know how open we feel, and we know what the opposite feels like too. And it's that state of expansiveness that's basically associated with higher levels of positive energy and therefore resulting in well-being. So however you can get to that place, like some of those little examples I gave you, that what I use to get back to my authentic self and feel grounded, are really useful. Things like meditation, going for a 20-minute walk outside in the fresh air, nature. I don't know if you've seen the Blue Zones movie. I was just talking about that earlier with Sylvia. It's not a movie, sorry, it's a 5-part series, but it's a great idea. It gives you the idea that, you know, community is super important for this. Being in nature, really important, eating well, all the things that we know, right? But you know, sometimes it's good just to have a little reminder. The second thing is your attention, your homework. And, you know, this involves basically doing some research around, you know, the aspirational value or values that you've chosen to think about more in the future, where you want to head. You know, I find it really useful to break things down into bite-sized pieces so I can sort of tackle them in a meaningful way. So I give you a little example here of what I did. I was like, right, I know nothing about Buddhism, so I'm going to pick 3 things to find out more about. And I just started doing some homework around those. The first was the principle of non-attachment, which means, like, you know, letting go a little bit and living more in the present. And even though you have a vision for things, trying to let go of the outcomes, but that's another discussion. But anyway, it's there. The second thing is something called the rope trick, which is basically trying to put yourself in other people's shoes. Okay. And the third thing is meditation. So I set out to find out more about those. I did my homework and I, you know, took some bite-sized pieces that I could actually pursue. And the third thing is mind mapping that. So I showed you what my mind map looks like. And in fact, this is a very simple mind map, even right here on this slide. Fleshing out your insights. I don't have time probably to get into this because I know we have a Q&A that we want to get to. So I think I should probably move forward. But just to say, I have the example of Bob Proctor and his yo-yo. I don't know if you know Bob Proctor. He's a Canadian, an amazing Canadian motivational speaker. I had the opportunity to see him many years ago. He really inspired me about vision, actually. He's one of my starting points, I think, with this. And he says you really have to know the who, what, when, and the how comes way later, right? It's like he talks about he wanted to win the competition, jacket back in the 1950s for the yo-yo championship. And he goes, I didn't care about the skills and all that stuff. I wanted the jacket. So he said he made a point. It was him. He wanted to do it by the end of the year, the next competition, and he wanted to be the champion, the what. And then he figured out how he was going to do it and all the skills later on. So that's a simple example. And then I want to leave you just with a couple of ideas on how you might go about actually creating a personal vision statement. Where you can start is, if you create a mind map, take some of the words from that mind map, phrases that you've used, some of the words you used when I asked you about what your aspirational vision was. Okay, take some of those words and just put them down on the page. Just throw them down on the page and think about, how can I string these words together? Is there a meaningful way that they can go together and make sense for me as a vision? And then maybe write, you know, a few sentences out around that. Then I encourage you to remove jargon statements, any motherhood statements. Like, everybody wants to be innovative, wants to be a leader, you know, wants to do good things for the environment. Like, take that stuff out and really make it about you and what you want to achieve with this vision. Make it about you, you know, for once. Now, shorten it down to at most a couple of sentences, and then take a break. And don't look at it again. I said until tomorrow, but like tomorrow and tomorrow and tomorrow, like look at it later. Then when you really want to drill down, when you're ready to have a go at it, take that draft message, shorten it down to 1 sentence. I encourage people to do it in 7 words or less. Why? Because that's the chunk of information. Anybody in psychology will tell you that you can actually remember. That's why phone numbers used to be seven digits long. That's why I can't remember phone numbers anymore. Anyway, once you've gotten it down to as short as possible, I'd also encourage you to start with a verb, a jump-in verb. Mine is lighting the vision path for all to see. So lighting was my first word, right? So it's a verb, it's an action. It gets you going. Every word counts and should have high meaning, which conveys the core aspects of value you want to deliver through your vision. So I want to leave you with this thought by Carl Jung, and I'm saying that incorrectly, Carl Jung. I love this. I love this quote. He says, your vision will become clear only when you can look into your own heart. Who looks outside dreams, who looks inside awakes. So that's it. Thank you very much. I appreciate your time, and I look forward to taking any questions. I think I need to maybe unshare my screen. Uh,
Thank you, Susan.
there we
Thank
go.
you so much. Yes, we have a lot of questions, not in the chat necessarily, but a lot that came in before. And one I wanted to ask you about is that many of us are tied to our professional titles. It becomes our identity. And then I mean, I haven't retired yet, but one of the ladies in there, people in the chat said, how do I dissociate that identity when I retire? I'm no longer working 60 hours a week, and I'm no longer that professor. What do you say?
I'll be honest, I'll be the first one to say it was really tough. And I'm not sure I've even fully let go of that identity of being a professor yet. It takes time. And I actually, Sylvia, I was talking to you earlier about a friend of mine who I'm not sure if she's listening in on the presentation, but if she is, I'll give her a little shout out here. Hi, Marie. She told me that she's worried about leaving her profession because she has an invisibility cloak. She feels, or she's worried about the invisibility cloak. I totally related to that. That idea that, well, if I leave my professional identity behind, who am I? Am I as a person? And I think what I realized was that even if I let go of my profession, I'm still me. I'm still who
Hmm.
I am. I still have my expertise. I still know what I know. I still have my family and friends, and I still have my vision.
Yeah, I
And
think.
yeah, what I was worried about losing was basically, I think, was basically it was a bit, I don't want to say the power trip, but
Mm, the
who I was,
the
the
external eyes.
external.
Yes,
And
people.
what I realized was that the it that I was afraid of losing, I wasn't going to lose, and that was, but it was hard. I'll be very, very honest. It was a hard thing to let go of. And I'm still working, obviously part-time, writing and so on and so forth. But yeah, it's been a journey, and I encourage those of you who, if that's the only reason you're not retiring, don't worry about it, because you'll continue to give back in more meaningful ways once you move forward.
It's never lost. I like that you say that. It's never lost. It's like if you're a parent, your children move away, you are still a parent, just in a different
Yes.
way. Right? I like that. We don't lose that identity. Like you will always be a professor, just a retired professor, and you're taking it to the next step. What are those skills that you want to keep and then bring into the next? Because we don't want to keep everything from our careers into retirement, right? I mean, there's lots of, I think people working in large corporations or whatever job you have that you might want to put aside. So what are you keeping into that next chapter? I love that. There were many, many questions, Susan, about money. And how do I, the examples you put, Oprah, the Dalai Lama, the Walt Disney, these people that are really, really high up there. But let's talk about finances. What do you say? Is that part of the planning process for you?
Absolutely it is. And I think that, let's talk about the elephant in the room, right? I mean, this is something everybody is concerned about. And I'll be the first person as well to say that when I retired, because I retired early at 57 as a
Mm.
university professor, I actually took a huge hit. It was a tough decision, and partly because of that, I took a big hit in terms of my financial benefits. I won't even get into it, but yeah, let's just say it was a big hit. So I had to kind of weigh that out. But I felt the pull to where I wanted to go with my vision. And again, why having a purpose and passion behind what you want to do, why it's so important, is that it pulls you towards that purpose-driven destiny thinking, where you can really, kind of go, you know what, I'll figure it out. But even more than figuring it out afterwards, if you can figure out a bit of it beforehand, it's great. So incorporate, what I would suggest is, and oh, I also should say that listen, I am no financial planner. I have a financial planner that helps me with that. I'm not a finance person. That's why I did my PhD in marketing, folks. Sorry. But I will say that it's important to bring people in that can help you if you don't have that skill set. Even if it's a bank manager, a financial planner, not necessarily a money manager, but a financial planner who can really help you plot out, a strategy for how to incorporate. I want to, have this vision. This is my vision for where I want to move. What kind of a financial plan do I need to, to make that happen, make that a reality? So what my biggest suggestion, I think, would be to incorporate the financial plan into your vision, and have people that you can connect with that can help you do that if that's not your strength. And believe me, I know what that's like firsthand.
Well, I think so, because if we're wanting to say travel for 6 months of the year, well, that requires a lot of funds in general for most people. So, I think when you were talking about the generations now wanting to retire sooner, I don't have the feeling that they just want to sit on a beach. I think, like you said, they
Yeah.
want to leave their corporate jobs and then move into what lights them up. Am I correct?
100%. I think you're
Yes.
absolutely right. One of my children, Scott, hi if you're there, Scotty, has talked a lot about wanting to do something perhaps entrepreneurial in the future. We'll see what happens. But I think that I think that really, if you're able to, if you have an entrepreneurial mindset for sure, and if and there are ways to learn about entrepreneurship. Not all entrepreneurs are born, although I think some are. My husband being one of those. But there's a lot that we can learn that enables us to be entrepreneurial. I'm a learned entrepreneur. I'm not someone who was born an entrepreneurial person, I don't think. But I think that everyone has it in them to learn how to do that if it's of interest to them. And having a strong vision will help you chart the right path to do that.
Mm, thank you for that. There is a great question here from Joanne. Is it normal to feel guilty because you've retired? I seem to have filled in my days with volunteering, exercising, writing a book, chores, errands. Because I've retired early, I feel I have to keep myself so busy. Can you ever be too busy?
Oh boy.
Type A, I
That's
think there you go.
a
That's a
loaded
loaded
question. Let me
question.
break that
Yes.
down a little bit. But about feeling guilty, maybe I'll talk about that first. I know I felt 100%. I felt guilty, partly because of the financial piece. Um, I also felt that, I was delivering on something at the university, and I did feel a little bit guilty about leaving the university. But again, it was the pull to something new where I felt that my vision was to deliver something to an even larger audience. Sometimes, obviously, in academia, sometimes we can be a little bit also, we do our research and it kind of gets circulated with our colleagues. I really felt the need to get my research out there to a much broader audience, and an audience that I understood as well. That was part of it. But to the guilty part of the question, I would say I think a lot of people feel that. I think it's a really normal response to considering retirement and then moving forward with it. But I think that if you're having a vision and moving towards that vision, you're being the best. That's the best version of yourself that you can be. It's destiny thinking. If you have those pangs of guilt, they're normal, but take that and
And
put it
put it
inside
aside. Well,
and
we
just put it
waited so
aside.
long for that time, right? We've
Yes,
waited years wanting, to move to something that we desire, that we truly desire, and then we feel guilty. I think that's a whole
yes.
other webinar, guilt. I think then we'll put that on
That's a
for
good
next
idea.
year. Thank you so
Yeah.
much, Susan. I know you mentioned your program that's coming up. I can't wait to join that.
Oh, I
I
hope you
think
do.
I will.
Yeah.
We are going to be sending out a form that Susan's provided in the thank you email that goes out. So if you are interested in working with Susan, that this is the opportunity to do so and honing in that vision of the second chapter.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. I definitely am feeling better equipped now, and I can't wait to delve into these exercises. If you'd like to touch base with Susan, you can reach her on LinkedIn. We've put her link in the chat, her LinkedIn chat. And before we say goodbye, I do want to invite everyone to our LinkedIn group. We can continue the discussion there. The link is in the chat. We have close to 900 members in that group. And we post about what Concordia women are doing. We share upcoming women who lead events, as well as other things that are happening and highlighting the wonderful work that many, many of you are doing. And what else do I want to end here? And yes, we do raise funds. Concordia is a wonderful fundraiser, and we, as a group here, we raise funds for the Women Who Lead Student Bursary. You can see the QR code on your screen and the link in the chat. If you enjoyed this free webinar, any donation would be much appreciated. They go to women across campus who are in need. And then finally, our final webinar for the year, for the school year, is next week, and it is called Ageism is Bad for Business. And we are going to be hearing from 3 professors from the Engage office, Concordia Center for Research on Aging. The link is also in the chat for that. And mark your calendars. It's Concordia's 50th anniversary, and we have a special homecoming. So many of the faculties, all of the faculties, and many of the departments are hosting reunions in September. The dates are the 18th, 19th, 20, and 21. So the 18th to the 21st. The emails and invitations are coming out soon. So please look at your emails. Thanks again, Susan.
You're
Thank you to my
welcome.
colleagues, Allison and Reid, and all of you for joining in such large numbers. This was a wonderful conversation, and I really look forward to hearing about all of your plans for your next chapter. Have a wonderful, wonderful afternoon. Thank you, Susan, again,
Thank you all.
and I look forward to joining your group.